Hi, guys. Fernandes Lembo on the grid, the championship edition.
Yes.
It gives me thrills and chills almost to say that. I wanted to say the 7A championship game.
First time in the esteemed history of our show, we have a team going to a state championship. Came close a couple years ago, Braden River. Last year, Venice and Charlotte both lost the Final Four last year, and this year we finally have Venice going in.
Venice St. John's Bartram Trail, 3 p.m., Camping World Stadium, known as the Citrus Bowl.
Saturday, yeah.
Before that, John, you had a nice article in today's paper about the 2000 team, the last Venice team to win. John Peacock was on that squad.
Yeah.
What did you
on
glean?
the coaching staff.
The coaching staff. What did you glean from that when talking to Coleman? I was going to say Vince Coleman, to Nick Coleman, and everybody on that team.
It was just they still have very pleasant, clear memories of that year, even though it was 17 years ago. Nobody seemed like they were grasping for memories. It was all pretty fresh. And, I didn't realize just how much the program struggled before that. Losing 38 of 40 games for a 4-year stretch, and all of a sudden they won the state title in 2000. Yeah, great story. And I mentioned in my story, it's so different, really since 07 with Coach Peacock here. Venice has been one of the better teams in the area. And this is kind of the culmination of finally kind of busting through that door, getting to a state final. That team, it was, as Nick Coleman said, they were a laughingstock. Who would have, it's funny to think of Venice being a laughingstock in football, but that's what it was. So I had a lot of fun doing that story. Talked to a lot of cool people, and maybe 17 years from now, we'll be talking about the 2017 state championship team.
I was at that game. I was on the sideline. It was kind of anticlimactic. The game was a blowout.
77-14.
John Peacock, I guess, was on the sideline there. Right?
Yeah, he was a linebackers.
Linebackers coach.
Yeah.
And again, it got the program going.
Yeah.
And you mentioned those bad days. I was there from when Jim Powell was the head coach. And they used to regularly get beaten pretty badly. But they face a St. John's Bartram Trail team. I read Dennis's story. Kind of unusual. They rotate quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Reminiscent of what Florida did with Steve Spurrier years ago.
Right.
They have Joey Gatewood and Riley Smith, both 6'5". They both can run and pass.
Yeah.
They don't change their offense when they come in. So that'll benefit Venice. But they've never seen a two-headed monster like this.
That's the weird thing. I mean, obviously, it's worked for them. They're in a state championship game. But it's weird that they rotate quarterbacks and they don't change the offense.
Right.
Obviously it's worked, and I was in the conference call with Coach Sutherland, the head coach at Bartram Trail, and he said it's worked because of how selfless the two guys are. Their ability to just, look, these two guys, who knows, they'd be starting anywhere in high school. Excuse me. They're Division I talents.
Was that Chipotle?
Yes, it was. They're both Division I talents. So give them credit for kind of sharing the load there, and obviously it's worked. But yeah, a little weird that they rotate the quarterbacks, but they keep the offense the same for both of them. Like you said, that might make it a little easier for Venice to game plan for, because all that's changing is the guy, behind center.
Right. And I read in Dennis's story where some quarterbacks have come from Bartram Trail, the Buffalo Bills Club.
Yeah.
And I guess in his speech to the team, he said, listen, to these two quarterbacks, you guys are going to face this competition in college. So you better get used to it now at the high school level.
Exactly. And that was a great way to kind of look at it and kind of frame it, I think, for those two kids. And again, give them credit. It's got them to a state final. They beat some good teams to get here. They beat Plant.
Very upset a little bit, right? When they beat Plant?
Maybe not. I know Plant had a hard time getting past Vieira. So I think it was just kind of a weird year in 7A. There were no real big-time favorites. Maybe Venice might be that. I don't know. I mean, Joe Pinkos picks the Indians to win by 3. Not exactly a huge point spread, but neutral field, they're the favorite by 3. So we'll see. Should be a good game. I kind of, having not seen Bartram Trail play, I kind of like Venice because of how well their defense has been the last couple of weeks. So we'll see how it pans out.
Venice's defense is going to have to come to play because the Bears have averaged 42 points this season. 4 times they've scored 50 or more points. We were at the game last week, and you see it in the pros a lot. Sometimes the semifinal game almost acts as the Super Bowl, and then you got the real Super Bowl the next week. Venice had St. Thomas Aquinas last week. Emotionally, John Peacock, and I'm sure he will, is going to get the team up for the real championship game now. Well,
what's interesting is going back to 2009 when Manatee beat Aquinas. They lost to Plant in the state final, 21-14. They were down 21, I think, at the half. The problem wasn't so much that. It was their guys weren't used to the Citrus Bowl, and the Plant guys were. You have two teams now who, Venice has been there in 17 years. Bartram Trail's never been there. So that's not going to be a factor, I don't think. And I think both teams scored big wins. You mentioned, Plant isn't quite Aquinas, but Plant has a great history, too. What they've done the last 15, 20 years. So both of these teams come off big wins. That kind of cancels out, I think. And, I think a lot of the kids, even last week talking to them, they knew that as big as the Aquinas win was, it wasn't what they strived to win a state championship. And as big as that win was last week, they didn't do that last week, so they have one more step. And if they do fall short, I don't think that'll be the reason.
Aquinas, you never agree with me. You know, we got to start keeping tally here on what you agree with. But we were at the game last week.
Yeah.
St. Thomas Aquinas.
Great game.
Great, fantastic setting. Second week in a row. Again, we talked about the attendance, 5,000, 6,000, but it was 4 or 5 deep at the fence all the way around.
It was great.
Great atmosphere. And once you slay Aquinas like that, I mean, you got to feel good about yourself going forward. That maybe you've taken care of the one opponent that maybe you had doubts about. Now you're facing Bartram Trail. I mean, what do you know about them other than?
Well, you know that they're good enough to reach a state final, just like Venice was. So, you can't fall into that trap either. Of we beat Aquinas, now we're gonna just roll over who's ever next. That's a trap you can fall into too. But no, I think if you're right. I mean, that was a huge win for them, a big confidence boost. And look, the second half, really, Venice blew them out. I mean, what was it, 20-3 in the second half? I mean, they just dominated that game. Great adjustments by the Venice coaching staff on both sides of the ball. They cleaned up some special team snafus they had in the first half, and you look the defense too. The 2 touchdowns that they scored, Aquinas, one was on the block field goal, one was on that kind of Hail Mary at the end of the kind of, I won't say a fluke play, but it took a perfect throw and a perfect catch. So, I mean, Venice really outplayed Aquinas for all 4 quarters. There was no. I think if they played 10 times, Venice wins maybe 7 times. They were a better team.
You were on the field. I was up in the press box right behind the Venice coaches, and they noticed early on in the second quarter, hey, we're wearing them down.
Yeah.
And if you look, maybe from the vantage point, they brought a whole fresh defensive line in the second half. Yeah. And even the Venice coaches were saying, hey, listen, they're bringing in new guys. Yeah. We're wearing them down. Keep it up, keep it up. And I think Venice did what they've done for most of their opponents this year.
Yeah, and Coach Peacock even said in the conference call that they kind of went against the grain in terms of who they are. I mean, they were a pound and ground team on Friday, and credit them for kind of getting out of that comfort zone and saying, hey, we just want to win this game. We don't care how we do it. Bryce Carpenter had one of the best big games I've seen a kid have. I mean, he was getting hit. I was down there. He was taking some pops and getting right back up and just dipping his head and running. Javon Hiley had some problems earlier. They kept defending him. He wound up getting over that. Brandon Gregory, the big run. Tyrone Barber, the huge game he had on both sides of the ball. So just a tremendous football game for Venice, and they have one more left.
And the 3-point favorite that Venice has been installed without seeing Bartram Trail. You know, I feel that Venice has played. Listen, they beat Braden River. They beat St. Thomas Aquinas. Unless these guys are Superman, I got to go with Venice in this game to bring back the title.
And I think that if Braden River wins the second round game, we're talking about them right now going to a state final. I think they would have beaten Aquinas as well. But in Bartram Trail's offense, their 3 losses came to a team from Georgia, Cartersville, who's very good, Cocoa, who plays for the 4A state title tonight, and also St. Augustine, who Armwood beat in a 6A semi. So they played some good teams as well. So it's kind of weird. You kind of look for an advantage. And it's like both these teams are almost like mirror images of each other in terms of what they've accomplished. They're both new to this round. So I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be whatever team kind of shakes off the jitters first. But I kind of like Venice because Venice has been in some shootouts this year. And I don't know if this team can stop the Carpenter-Hiley connection. I mean, Aquinas kind of did, and Venice still beat them.
And with any game, you throw in some turnovers, and that'll skew the equation.
Right.
That sort of screws up the calculus.
I mean,
at that point.
I'll be honest. When they blocked that kick last week, I thought this game's over. I thought that's a huge, and they came right back. So we'll see. It should be a fun game.
And the entire Crack HT staff will be there. John Lembo, Dennis Maffezoli, and yours truly.
I think in the entire city of Venice will be there too.
Looking forward to it too. They'll have fan buses going up there. They'll have 1 or 2 buses. 3 o'clock start, so plenty of time to get a good perspective after the game.
And to make deadline.
Win or lose, and to make deadline, which is always important in our business.
Yes.
What else is going on?
Well, we had something in the paper and online. 4 finalists for the Southeast coaching job. Brett Timmons, one of them.
Right.
Scotty Little's one of them, who was a Booker assistant, who was in Virginia. Keith Shatton, who was at Lennard. And Jesse Norris, who's an assistant at Aquinas. Joe Collis, the AD, said hopefully next week they'll have a decision made.
Right.
Today they're meeting for a community forum. Some people from the community will interview these guys, and next week they hope to have a new coach at Southeast.
Coach Timmons, we're all familiar with his work around the area. Yeah. The original list was how many? About 80?
Around 60. 60? They interviewed 10. And they narrowed down to these 4 finalists.
Now, is that a reflection, you think, of the great area, the promise of the school, or a combination of several factors, or none of the above?
There are some factors, obviously. High school football in Florida is still is king. You're coming to an area where it's huge. And let's be honest, this is a nice place to live. The weather, the beach and everything. And also, too, Southeast, they would have had a really good year if some off-the-field stuff didn't happen. So you're getting a pretty decent team. And, so...
So hopefully we'll have that news.
Yeah.
Maybe going for the next week. And today's paper had something about Willie Taggart.
Yes. Manatee
High
alum.
star.
Yeah.
Manatee taking the job at FSU, calling it his dream job. I'd like to go back and look at his last 3 press conferences for the last 3 jobs to see if he mentioned those were his dream jobs.
A lot of dream jobs.
But he was an FSU fan growing up.
Yeah.
And, hey, 41-year-old guy taking over the FSU program. He may end up being a guy like Bobby Bowden. End up there for 40 years. He may, this may be his dream job. When do you go after your dream job?
No, I hear you, but it's just kind of tough. I mean, I wonder how many kids coming to Oregon, come play for me. I'll be here for a while. Now I'm going to Tallahassee, and I know it's the business, but it kind of.
Yeah. Now it's a question of see if he can get some of those recruits that he had up in Oregon to come back down.
Early signing in about
Florida.
2 weeks,
Yeah,
so he has about 2 weeks to
days.
kind of keep some FSU guys intact as well.
Anything else?
No, we'll see what's going on Saturday, and maybe next week we'll talk about the championship Venice season.
Hopefully, and if they do win, maybe we can have John Peacock talk about it.
Maybe.
And look back on it. But whatever it is, we'll be here to talk about it.
We will.
So for John Lembo, I'm Doug Fernandes. See you next week on The Grid.